It was just another ordinary evening, but little did anyone know that what happened at a quiet bus stop would spark outrage across the country. A young black CVS employee, dressed neatly in his uniform after a long shift, sat down on a bench waiting for his Lyft ride. Nothing unusual, nothing out of the ordinary. But the chain of events that followed would shock both witnesses and strangers alike. As he sat there scrolling through his phone, a patrol car slowed nearby. The officer eyed him suspiciously, as if his presence on the bench itself was a crime. The young man, tired yet patient, had no idea that a simple act of waiting would turn into a life-altering moment. People passing by noticed the officer circling, tension rising with each second. Why would someone sitting quietly attract such attention? Viewers would soon learn that what began as a calm wait would escalate into something no one could have predicted. The officer stepped out, his voice sharp, demanding to know why the young man was sitting there. Confused, the CVS employee explained politely that he was just waiting for his Lyft driver to pick him up. His shift had ended late, and he simply wanted to get home. But instead of easing the officer's suspicion, his calm words only seemed to irritate him more. Onlookers began to slow down, sensing the rising tension. The employee, visibly tired yet respectful, reached into his pocket to show his phone screen with the Lyft app open. But that single movement, innocent and natural, made the officer tense up, hand brushing against his holster. The young man froze, realizing instantly how fragile the moment was. A crowd gathered, phones lifted, recording every second. What was supposed to be an uneventful ride home was quickly spiraling into a nightmare that would soon grip the internet. Within minutes, backup arrived. 2 more officers surrounded the bench, their presence heavy and intimidating. The CVS employee, who had done nothing but wait for his ride, suddenly found himself treated like a suspect. His voice cracked as he repeated, "I just got off work, I'm waiting for my Lyft." The crowd began shouting, demanding to know why this was happening. Some yelled that it was unfair, others pleaded for the officers to simply let him be. Yet, the officers didn't step back. They insisted he provide more proof, more answers, as though his explanation wasn't enough. The Lyft driver even called, his voice loud through the speaker, confirming he was on the way. But by then, the officers had already made up their minds. They grabbed him by the arm. Gasps filled the air. Phones caught the moment. The young man looked shocked, as if reality itself had betrayed him. The young man's hands were pulled behind his back as the crowd shouted in disbelief. The click of handcuffs echoed, chilling everyone around. People recording screamed, "He didn't do anything," but the officers insisted he was loitering, refusing to leave, even though everyone knew he was simply waiting for his ride. His Lyft driver finally arrived, pulling up to the corner, but it was too late. The sight he witnessed left him stunned, his passenger, in uniform, handcuffed for no reason. The driver stepped out, pleading with the officers, explaining he had been minutes away. But the officers ignored him. The young man, embarrassed, shaken, and humiliated, kept repeating that he had done nothing wrong. Yet his words fell on deaf ears. The world felt unfair in that moment, and the weight of injustice hung thick in the air. Viewers couldn't believe this was really happening. The ride to the station was silent, broken only by the young man's heavy breaths. His uniform shirt wrinkled under the cuffs, a reminder that he had just come from work, where he had served others all day. Now, he was treated like a criminal. At the station, the questions grew more absurd. Why was he there? What was he doing? Over and over, he explained the same thing, he was waiting for his Lyft. But no one seemed to listen. Hours passed. His phone buzzed with missed calls from his worried family and his manager wondering why he hadn't made it home. Finally, with no charges they could pin on him, the officers released him in the middle of the night. Exhausted, shaken, and heartbroken, he walked out with no apology, no explanation. He had lost hours of his life to a system that saw suspicion before it saw his humanity. By the next morning, the videos from the crowd had gone viral. Millions of people across the country saw the young man's humiliation, saw the fear in his eyes, and the calm patience that wasn't enough to protect him. Social media exploded with outrage, hashtags spreading like wildfire. Comment sections filled with disbelief, anger, and empathy. News outlets picked up the story, demanding answers. The CVS employee, once invisible in the crowd of daily workers, suddenly became a face for something larger. He was invited to share his story, his voice trembling as he recounted the simple act of waiting for a ride that had turned into a nightmare. People across the nation began to see not just one man's struggle, but a mirror reflecting something much deeper. This wasn't just his story anymore, it had become everyone's. In the weeks that followed, the young man's life changed in ways he never imagined. Support poured in from strangers, from organizations, from people who believed he deserved better. CVS released a statement standing by their employee, and his manager expressed pride in how he handled himself with dignity. Lawsuits were filed, petitions circulated, and city leaders were forced to respond. The young man, though still shaken, realized he had become a symbol of resilience. What started as a painful, humiliating night had grown into a powerful call for justice. As he stood before cameras one final time, he didn't speak with anger, but with hope. "I just want what happened to me to never happen to anyone else." His words echoed far beyond that bench, far beyond that moment, reminding the world that sometimes, the quietest voices create the loudest change.